explain and I will introduce myself a little bit so you can get to know me, because I think not a lot of people, when they are expecting some diplomats from the Embassy of Israel, at least that's my experience, they're always surprised to see me eventually walking in. So I was born and raised in Israel. Both of my parents born in Ethiopia, and they moved to Israel. They made Aliyah in 1984 as part of Operation Moses. So basically, they were very young. Both of my parents moved around the ages of 11 and 13, and basically they spent most of their lives in Israel rather than in Ethiopia. I was in Ethiopia, funny enough, 8 years ago for some sort of a closure trip with my mother to get to know the area that she grew up as a child. But I'm an Israeli. I served in the army. I grew up in Israel, raised in Israel, and I'm an Israeli. So today, and as my job as a trade commissioner, basically I'm the person responsible about all the commercial and all the trade relationship between Israel and South Africa. And in today's presentation, I want to introduce you Israel. What is Israel? What is innovation? What is all the story about, the high-tech sector, the innovation, the startup nation, and all of that. So we'll start with a little bit of information and economic details about the country. So Israel, as you know, is a roughly small country. We're talking about 9.5, actually we're reaching to 10 million citizens at the moment. The size of Israel, how many South Africans we have in here? Okay, the majority. So the state of Israel is in the size of Kruger Park. I don't know if you knew that. So it's really small. When I'm saying that to people, people are like expecting it to be a huge country, but actually it's a very small country. And we have with all the, I would say, the restraints of the size of the country, we're still talking about roughly 2% growth of the population every year. GDP-wise, so we're looking, and the economic indicators are relevant for 2023. We're talking about $540 billion in a year. And even with this time of war, obviously our credit rate was a bit decreased, but still we're quite stable with S&P rate that stands at A at the moment. Israel's challenges. So it's not only the size, it's also the fact that we have, I would say, we're surrounded by very challenging neighbors around us. I wish we could have just traded like South Africa is trading with Zimbabwe, or South Africa is trading with Botswana or Namibia. Obviously, we have a peace agreement with Jordan and Egypt, and we're trading with them. But eventually, this problematic neighborhood affects, and obviously since October 7th, you can understand that it really affects, how we are eventually forced to create our own economy and to eventually be self-sustained. So this is how I would say the story of the Israeli innovation began, with the understanding that we don't have anyone else to trust. It's only us. And we're talking about 48, when the Israel state was just established. We didn't have any peace agreement with any of the neighbors. We just knew that we're there, and we need to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves. So Israel is also a roughly young country. We're existing less than 80 years. And we're also, this is another thing that I would say we're sharing in common with South Africa, is the fact that we're multiculturalist. I'm a vivid example for that, but we have really people coming from all over the world, from the Soviet Union, from Yemen, from Iraq, from the US, from India, from South Africa, Ethiopia. So think about, small country, tiny country, very young, that needs to deal with different cultures, different beliefs, different, ideas. And to add more to that is the fact that we don't have any natural resources to rely on. It's not like we can just, export diamonds and iron to the world. We literally didn't have anything, just a desert, a little bit of, the Green Mountains in the north, but that's it eventually. So Israel's ecosystem, basically, the DNA of Israel basically emerged I would say, from three important pillars: the IDF, the army, the academia, and the government. Three of them basically were the ones that eventually forced the government, or first I would say the entrepreneurs, into a place of innovation. The IDF, and specifically the intelligence unit, the technological units, that basically serves as, I would say, a boot camp for all the young entrepreneurs, basically force them, not force them, but they allow them hands-on experience about cyber, about communication, about AI, about data. Think about 18 years old freshman that just finished high school that goes into the army, and all of a sudden he has real experience about all these systems, about all these technologies. But not only that, it's also the idea that he can also develop some of them, because eventually, as I said, we're living in a very problematic area, and eventually you're forced to create a solution. A situation where you're saying, listen, I don't have anything to offer you, this is what we have, it's just not acceptable, because the outcome, the circumstances are different, but also the outcomes of us saying, listen, this is what we have, and we have nothing else to do, it's just not acceptable. So IDF responsible for I would say, the first push of pushing really the people, the young generation into having this experience there, right? Like, you need to be very bold in your thinking and try and be more flexible with how you're thinking about things, combining different I would say, ideas and thinkings and industries, okay? Second thing is the academia. Okay, most of those people finish the academia. Eventually, we're talking about, the leading institutions in the world, like the Hebrew University, the Technion, Tel Aviv University. A lot of them, by the way, eventually exported Nobel winners. So we're talking about the combination of people that just finished army, and then they're going to the academia. In the academia, they're having like not only the practical tools that they have used in the army, but also the theoretical, I would say, knowledge. How they can sharpen their knowledge, how they can think forward about, other solutions that we need to develop, okay? And not only that, it's also the fact that you're eventually sitting in one classroom with other people like you. So not necessarily you have people that served in the same units in the army just like you. You meet like other people that served in, I don't know, as a paramedic in the army, right? And then their experience as a paramedic from life science or medical aid basically can contribute to someone who served as a cyber researcher at 8200 or something like that. So we have the connection between the IDF and the academia, and then this is where the government basically kicks in. The government kicks in with the Innovation Authority. The Innovation Authority is one of the most important, I would say, components of our ecosystem, because that's the body that's responsible about promoting the technology, okay? Whether with funds that the government is basically giving to those entrepreneurs, but also with different R&D programs that the country is, I will show you the data later on, but basically that's the body that's responsible about the research, the data, the collaboration, the international collaboration that we have at the moment with different nations worldwide, with India, with Singapore, with South Korea, with the US. It's important not only to stay around our own mindset here in Israel, but also to understand what's happening out there in the world, what we can basically adopt here in Israel and exchange, ideas. So to sum it up about the cultural DNA of, I would say, the entrepreneur. So as I said, it's the interdisciplinary spirit. It's not just focusing on computer science. That's what I had. To be honest, if you go to most of the universities in Israel, you see combinations of psychology and computer science. You see a combination of government and business, something like that. It's very important not to focus only on your own discipline, but rather to go out and see what's happening out there in other schools, in other industries, in other sectors that the students are being exposed in the university, but also within the high-tech industry. So you see, like not only engineers sitting and coding, but you see someone who was electrical engineer, okay, that's involved in a high-tech, in a startup that comes actually from the industry of life science and med tech, okay? You'll see people with a background of medicine that works actually in agriculture, for instance. So the combination is very important because this is how you can apply the lessons and the mindset in other industries. So that's one. Second is the out-of-the-box thinking, and I think it's kind of like coincides with the other pillar, which is basically don't be, straightforward about this is what I've been taught. I'm a plumber, and this is how we need to fix this leaking or whatever. You need to think about it from a different perspective. So always make an effort to try and think outside of the box and look for creative solutions. And the last thing is the fact that we're in Israelis, we're bold, but I think the one thing that you should take with you is the fact that we're not afraid from mistakes. Actually, we're encouraging mistakes. And this is why the army serves as a very important pillar in our ecosystem. Because, not that I'm saying that we have, room for mistakes. Eventually, we're talking about saving lives of people. But we do understand that the power of mistakes is the fact that we can learn from it. And we can improve ourselves for the next time. So it's not like someone had a mistake, it was wrong. And, some other cultures are very strict with the way that they're handling mistakes. When we are making mistakes, we're having a research. We're trying to understand what went wrong, what we can learn from next time, what we can do better next time, what's in the process we can improve ourselves better. And I think the whole, environment of us not fearing from mistakes basically allow us to be more fearless in a way, more bold. So today, Israel, just to give you just in numbers, has the highest, I would say, ratio of startups per capita. We're talking about 9,000 startups that active in Israel. Obviously, not all of them will eventually ended up like Waze or Mobileye with a huge exit, but it can give you a glimpse, an idea about the fact that we are constantly looking for innovation, constantly opening startups. Some of them, yes, they're closing, but at the same time, more and more are opening every year. So we're talking about 9,000 startups that are active at the moment in Israel. And not only that, we have 420, actually, to be accurate, multinationals that decided to open their R&D centers in Israel. So we're talking about Google, we're talking about Amazon, we're talking about eBay, Volkswagen, Mercedes, you name it. Almost every multinational in the world has an R&D center, and it's not a secret. You can guess why. Everyone wants to be close to where the minds are working, where the magic happens eventually. So that's about the multinationals, and obviously 70% of Israel's GDP basically is coming from the high tech sector. And Tel Aviv, as you can see, this beautiful beach and the shore. So Tel Aviv is basically now ranked fourth in the global startup ecosystem. Basically, that's the index that's responsible about but also, measuring the level of openness, the amount of entrepreneurs that you have in the country, how much the government is supporting, and basically the place that this specific city has in fostering innovation. So Tel Aviv is right after the US, which is San Francisco and New York, and London. So we have Tel Aviv. And this is just to give you an idea about how the high tech looks. I mean, the proportion. So third of all the companies operating at the moment in Israel basically coming from organizational softwares. So that's more of a companies that dealing with data, with management of companies and all of that. Obviously cyber and fintech. By the way, those three segments are responsible for, I mean, they have the majority of the investments that worldwide. I mean, most of the investments that coming into Israel will be probably directed to this industry, but also they are the ones that eventually made it up into a selling cycle to an exit. The rest are coming from medical devices, agriculture, water. Israel is a pioneer when it comes to water industry. As you know, the story about, the desert, right? The desert we had nothing basically south of Israel. And I think the most known name when it comes to agriculture is Netafim because of their reversionary technology with their dripping. So basically now you can grow everything in every, every climate, every soil that you have, you can grow anything. And that's, again, thanks to the fact that we didn't have any choice but to grow our own food. When we don't have tomatoes and potatoes, we can't just import it from our neighbors just next door. It's just not going to happen. So we were forced to think about creative solutions, how to grow our food. So, but still, I mean, that leads me to my next slide. This one. I want to take you, just to give you an example about how Israel's export looked 75 years ago, in 1948. You see the majority of Israel's export to the world is citrus, right? The oranges, the Jaffa. That was the majority of it. Now, we're looking into machinery, chemicals, and all the sectors that basically supporting different industries worldwide. And as I said, the high-tech sector also becomes more and more dominant when it comes to our trade, I would say, total trade picture, basically. We spoke before about the R&D. R&D is one of the most important things because basically this is how not only establishing relationship with different entities and nations worldwide, but it's also how you get different minds getting into the country and sharing from their knowledge, but also how you basically exporting the Israeli knowledge into the world. So you can see that Israel has the highest percentage of investment in R&D. By the way, comparing to the US and South Korea, so Israel is investing almost 6.5% of its GDP in R&D. Okay, so it's basically it's not enough. It's not enough just to say, we're a powerhouse of innovation. We're the startup nation and all of that. It has to come with an actions. It has to come with government investment. And another thing that I forgot to mention is the fact that what the Israeli Innovation Authority is responsible for, aside of the R&D investments and establishing those relationships, it's also share, and I think that's the most important, I would say, component of its work. With its grants, the idea is really to share the risk that those entrepreneurs are taking. In a way, what all these grants are up to. Eventually, the government says, okay, you have a startup, right? You have a startup, sounds wonderful. We have a committee that are there to basically to go through the technology, to go through your business model and all of that. But we know that it's not enough to have a great technology. It's also to raise the capital for your startup. So basically the government says, you know what? I'm sharing the risk. I'm sharing the risk with you. If the startup works, So you will refer to this grant as a loan. You'll just return the money in obviously in a more comfortable ways and conditions, but you return the money as a loan because you're a very successful startup. You made it. Congratulations. If not, it's just a grant, and we share the risk. So that's another component that, I mean, it's very crucial for you to understand how basically the ecosystem is working. So October 7th obviously was tragedy. I don't think that there is anyone in Israel that didn't knew someone who knew someone that was affected in any way from the war. Personally, I have two brothers that are serving in the army. So obviously it affects our daily lives. In terms of the economy, so obviously think about a situation where in one day, not only the fact that we experienced one of the most horrific events the state of Israel have known, but also the fact that, you know, in 1 second, we're talking about a lot of people that needed to go to the army, right, for reserve duty. So think about the economy. Think about all these workplaces that eventually, you know, people didn't show up for work because we have a war. We have a war to, exactly. But still, Israel is Israel. So that's the acquisitions, okay? That's all the acquisitions of tech startups that basically took place in Israel from 2014, right? Yeah, 2014, yeah, until the first half of 2025. By the way, the first half of 2025, it was the acquisition of Wiz by Google, which is the largest deal in the history of Israel, $32 billion US. Second half was Alto Palo that basically purchased CyberArk for $25 billion, right? Yeah. So you can see it. During the war, okay? Yeah. When we're struggling, we don't have enough people serving in, in those companies because they have their own duties as commanders, as soldiers, as everything. Where the economies are struggling with, inflation, this is what Israel's resilience looks like. Because eventually, all these, the ecosystem, the VCs, the investors, they know that eventually, the day after the war, and I think I didn't brought this data, I should have, but I have the data, maybe I have it somewhere in here, I will need to look for it. But you'll see that after every, no, actually I think I had, yes, I have it. As there's always a rise. We were hit, but then we know how to come up and get up stronger and wiser and to do it. So obviously on the last quarter of 2023, you see like huge fall-up of our growth, right? You see like 20% of the growth was obviously decreased because everyone was just shocked. Me personally, I wasn't even to work and I'm here in South Africa. But you see like the quarter after, it goes up to 16, right? And then we had the operation in Rafah in the second quarter of 2024, right? So it decreased and then we get it up. So, only God knows, how this war will end and when it will end. But I can show you one thing, that eventually, after all this military confrontation, after these wars, Israel will prevail. It always happened, and it will always happen. So South Africa and Israel, we have a lot of South Africans, but actually, I want to ask you, John, maybe you'll know the answer. Do you know I will ask it differently. Do you know which country is the largest trade partner of Israel in Africa? In terms of like trade, importing, exporting, guess. Anyone has a guess? Ke- Nigeria. What else? Kenya, I heard, and South Africa. South Africa is Israel's largest trade partner in the continent in terms of export and import. Okay? I mean, by far. I mean, a lot of people are being surprised in light of the political situation between the countries. But South Africa is Israel's largest trade partner in Africa. To be much more accurate, I would say that South Africa, I think it's one of the first peace agreement that was signed in Africa, I think it was with Ghana. But yeah, you can see the numbers. Remember that we spoke about times of war and everything, so you can also see it. Actually, there is see that there is like, the figures for 2025 obviously are not finalized yet, but you can see that there is some sort of an increase in the number of import that we have from South Africa. I mean, obviously there is a significant export from Israel rather than import, but still you can see that along the years we're starting to import more from South Africa. What we are exporting to South Africa, so a lot of the products and a lot of the things that you see in here are basically products that basically supporting the industries here in South Africa. So chemicals that will be supporting the agriculture, okay, like chemicals and all that. Machinery, that some of them are also supporting the agriculture sector in South Africa, but also mining, for instance. Minerals, as you see, it's almost like it's very minimal, but medical that grows along the years, and food that we're also exporting to South Africa. Not much, to be honest, because we're importing much from South Africa. Almost like 60% of what Israel is importing from South Africa is food and fresh produce. And I'll give you a guess. You know what's the only thing that Israel can import from South Africa? We can't import it from anywhere else in the world. This thing we can import only from South Africa. And I'm talking about food and fresh produce. No. Actually, we're producing our own kosher wine, but we can also import it from the US and from Europe. But there is one thing that we can import only from South Africa. No, actually, you'd be surprised. A lot of Israelis don't know, and it's... What? No? Yes? No? Yes! Who said that? Yes, grapes. Grapes, that's the only thing that you can import from South Africa. We can't import it from anywhere else in the world, not from Chile, not from Australia, not from anywhere else in the world. Also remember that the seasons are the opposite, right? So winter time in Israel, basically that's the time that we start importing from South Africa. That's your season in South Africa. So winter time, if you have an opportunity to be in Israel during the winter, and you'll see grapes on the shelves, so know that it's a South African grapes. Maybe you can get them in cheaper here in South Africa because it's the same. But yeah, 60% of what we're importing from South Africa is grapes, garlic, nuts, wine, not enough. I wish we can import more wine, more biltong. I mean, there's more to import. And the rest is also chemicals. It's, I haven't referred to diamonds, honestly, just because Israel used to be like a large manufacturer of diamonds. We used to import the raw materials and then basically doing all the work. No, I think it's fine, doing all the work in Israel, but now most of these factories basically moved to India. So that's a very nice picture about the relations that we have. As a trade commissioner, I would say that I'll be more than happy to see more import of services. I mean, it's just a data that it's available in Israel once in 2 years. The numbers are ranging around 15 to 25, I would say, million dollars per year of importing of services. Usually it's a high-tech services like fintech and softwares that different South African entities are importing, are buying from Israeli companies. I mean, you know, there's a lot of like technology that South Africa can use: water, desalination, energy, all of that. But that's obviously refers only to good import and export. Doing business. How many of you had a chance to travel to Israel, to be in Israel? Ah, wow. Okay, nice. So I'm sure that you're familiar with the Israeli attitude. I'm being very diplomatic. but eventually, you know, there's one thing that's very important about doing business with Israelis, and it's relationships. Eventually, I think this is something that we also share in common with South Africans, because from what I had from all the meetings, all the business meetings that I had with different people in South Africa, eventually it will ended up with, okay, so when are you coming to Brai with us? So it's the same with Israelis. Eventually it's not doing cold business, it's really about building relationships and doing business with people, not with companies, and really to get to know each other and to get to know your family and your habits and what do you like to eat, and you know, it's everything about relationships. We're informal. I mean, I'm wearing a suit, that's my job, but eventually you see most of the CEOs will just come casually with their t-shirt and with their polo. It's very informal, very, you know, we're very warm and direct people. So you walk usually to like a very fancy office, but then you see like someone who will be very, very informal with you. He can even hug you, or you know, just give you like, you know, how are you, my brother, right? So it will be very informal, because this is how we are, Israelis. Be flexible. I mean, the security situation, it's a one important component, because you can never know what can happen the day after. I mean, 6th of October was just a beautiful day. Everyone was getting ready for the holiday, and the next day it was the most horrific day in our lives. So be flexible. If an Israeli businessman will reach out to you and say, okay, let's have a meeting, you can expect that the meeting can take place the day after, or even the same like later today, because it is, I mean, be flexible. We're very informal. We're very, okay, let's just sit for a short talk and let's discuss those things. And the last thing is be action oriented, and I think it kind of like sums it up. We never know what happens the day after. We're very informal. Be direct. Be very focused on what you want to achieve. I mean, we're very straightforward in what we want. I think most of the Israeli business people will put it up there at the beginning. This is what I'm looking for. This is what I'm willing to pay. This is what I'm asking for my solution. And they're expecting the same thing from their counterparts. And it's my job to explain them things are working different in South Africa. Be patient, but they'll still be very, you know, action oriented. Okay, like what's the next stage? Like what we need to do now, and kind of like, you know, they want all the information. Yes. So before I wrap up, I said that I will explain a little bit more. Thank you. I will explain a little bit more about my office and what we are doing in South Africa as a trade commissioner. So basically, Israel's trade mission to South Africa, it's one of 50 offices that we have worldwide. Sometimes we're sitting within an embassy, sometimes are not, because basically we're based in the financial, I would say, cities or capitals in the world, not necessarily where the embassy is located. So the best example would be Australia, for instance, that obviously the embassy will be located in Canberra, but all the business is taking place in Sydney. But the idea is really to try and provide all the accurate information about doing business, about the technology to these local entities. So we're doing that with business delegations that we're leading from Israel to, in that case, to South Africa. But as I said, to any other place in the world, to Sweden, to Germany. In Germany, actually, we have two offices. US, we have 3 offices. China, Japan, South Korea, Singapore, Romania, I don't know, you name it. In Africa, we have actually 4 offices. South Africa is the first one that was established. Then we have Kenya. Kenya and Ghana that basically were opened in 2018 along with our government decision to promote relationship with African countries. And this summer, we opened our office in Morocco. So basically, we have South, East, West, and North Africa. So basically, we're handling this with having different events that the idea is really to promote Israeli technology and Israeli innovation. We're working with local corporates, entities, governments. Some other governments are more friendly, some are not. But the idea is really to work with them and to provide value, really to get to know you and see how we can help. So we're doing that with scouting projects. Usually, basically, we're sitting with a company, understanding their needs, if there's like a specific project that they're working on, I don't know, like a hospital that now wants to move all of their files into like automated, systems, right? So basically, we're sitting with them, understanding what's their needs, what's their budget, and then basically we're providing them with a catalog of Israeli companies that obviously fits their prices and their agenda. And basically, we're establishing those B2B meetings. So that's one example. We also have business delegations to and from Israel. Obviously, when it's not times of war, we're working, I would say, on a very high volume into inviting more and more international delegates to visit Israel and to meet those companies. But again, it's still happening. It's very important for me to say that we still have Israeli companies traveling to South Africa for meetings or different events and roadshows, but also South Africans that are traveling to Israel to get to know the industry, to get to know the ecosystem. And last, as I said, it's market research and data. Sometimes it's just about information. It's just about getting to know what's really happening. Think about, I don't know, like a municipality that wants to kick off like some sort of a desalination project in their territory, right? So they want to get to know more details about how Israel did that. What does it mean for? If there's any need in like meeting different experts, different companies, different, all of that. So we're doing it. And that's it. I have a dedicated team here in South Africa. Basically, this is their job. Every manager is basically responsible for different sectors. So we have one that will be responsible for healthcare and agriculture. The other one will be relevant for cyber and fintech. The other one will be more into infrastructure, which is like energy and water. But yeah, the idea is really to try and understand how we can assist. And obviously our services are free of charge because we're a government entity, so we're not charging. That's it, basically. And if you have any questions, I'm here. And thank you.